This isn't just some story I cooked up for drama. This is what actually happened in my family, a wound that will probably never heal. It all started in my parents' dining room, with the weight of my grandmother's leather-bound recipe book sitting on the sideboard like a silent judge. The screen of my sister's iPhone cut through the dim light of the room, casting a pale, artificial glow on her smug face as she held it up for my parents to see. We were all gathered for our weekly Sunday dinner, the aroma of garlic and roasting chicken filling the air, but the familiar comfort of the ritual had just been shattered. "Elena, you won't believe it," Bella announced, her voice dripping with faux modesty that she had perfected over years of practice. "My torta di amore just hit 1 million views, and Food Network just reached out. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My torta di amore. The sound of it was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My fork clattered against my plate, the sharp porcelain sound slicing through the sudden silence. My mother's gasp of delight was quickly followed by my father's booming, "Isabella, that's incredible." They were beaming, their faces filled with a pride that was meant for me. It was a pride built on a lie, and the architect of that lie was my own sister, who was now soaking in their adoration like a thirsty plant in a downpour. She didn't even flinch. She just smiled, a dazzling, camera-ready smile that never quite reached her eyes. In that moment, watching her steal my grandmother's legacy, my legacy, right in front of me, I felt a coldness spread through my chest, a chilling premonition that this was not just a simple theft. It was a declaration of war. Our grandmother, Nana Lucia, was the heart of our family. She had hands that were perpetually dusted with flour and a laugh that could fill a room. She raised us as much as our parents did, especially after she moved from Italy to live with us in San Francisco's North Beach. Her kitchen was my sanctuary. While Bella was outside, cultivating her popularity, I was inside, watching Nana's wrinkled hands move with an artistry that was both ancient and effortless. She taught me how to feel the dough, how to listen for the sizzle of garlic and olive oil, how to know by scent alone when a cake was perfectly baked. Her recipe book, the one now sitting on the sideboard, was her soul bound in worn leather. It was filled with her elegant, slanted script, stained with olive oil and dusted with the ghosts of flour from 100 different recipes. But the torta di amore was different. It wasn't just a recipe, it was a sacrament. A dense, fragrant almond and citrus cake that she only made for the most important occasions: weddings, baptisms, anniversaries. The final, crucial ingredient, a specific type of candied citrus peel she made herself from an old country secret, was never written down. It was a secret she whispered to me, and only me, one sunny afternoon when I was 16. "This, mia cara," she'd said, her eyes twinkling, "is the heart of the cake. It is our story. You keep it safe." And now Bella was calling that story hers. After the initial shock at the dinner table, I tried to find my voice. "Bella, what are you talking about?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "That's Nana's cake. That's my cake." Bella waved a dismissive hand, the diamond on her finger catching the light. "Oh, Lena, don't be so dramatic. It's based on Nana's recipe, of course. I just updated it, gave it a little modern flair for my followers. You know how it is." My father, ever the peacemaker, jumped in. Now, girls. There's enough of Nana's legacy to go around. Isabella is honoring her memory by sharing it with the world." Honoring her memory? She was erasing it. She was erasing me. I watched the video later that night, huddled in my small apartment in the Mission District, the city lights twinkling outside my window like mocking eyes. It was a masterpiece of deception. The video was beautifully shot, with soft lighting and quick, trendy cuts. Bella, in a pristine white apron, moved around a kitchen that looked more like a television studio than a real place for cooking. She measured, she mixed, she smiled winningly at the camera. And she told the story. Our story. But in her version, she was the one at Nana's side, the chosen one, the keeper of the family secrets. She even had the audacity to hold up a different, store-bought jar of candied citrus, calling it her little secret twist. It was a lie layered on a lie. She had stolen the cake, the story, and the soul, and replaced it with a hollow marketable brand. The comments section was a torrent of praise. "You're a genius, Bella. This recipe is divine. Your grandmother would be so proud. I'm making this for my anniversary. Thank you for sharing your family's story." Each comment was another twist of the knife. I felt invisible, like a ghost watching someone else live my life. This wasn't the first time Bella had done something like this. Growing up, she was the sun and I was her shadow. My art projects were her inspiration. My carefully curated playlists became her discoveries. My personal stories, told to her in confidence, were retold as her own witty anecdotes at parties. I had always let it go, telling myself it was easier than fighting, that it didn't matter. But this was different. This was Nana. This was the one sacred thing I had left of her. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. Bella's star didn't just rise, it went supernova. Her video was shared by major food bloggers. An article appeared on the SF Gate food section titled, "San Francisco's newest baking sensation puts a modern twist on old world charm." It featured a glamorous photo of Bella, looking every bit the culinary prodigy. She was interviewed on a local morning show, Cron 4's Bay Area Live. I watched, my stomach in knots, as she charmed the host, recounting fabricated stories of her and Nana in the kitchen. "She always told me I had the magic touch," Bella said with a perfectly practiced, wistful sigh. The host ate it up. The viewers ate it up. My sister was building an empire on the foundations of my life. The final straw came when I discovered she had started selling Bella's Torta di Amore baking kits online for $49.99 a box. She was monetizing my grief, packaging my memories, and selling them to strangers. I called her, my hand trembling as I held the phone. "You're selling kits, Bella? You're selling Nana's cake in a box." Her voice was cold, stripped of the warmth she performed for her audience. "It's called being an entrepreneur, Elena. You should try it sometime. Look, I don't have time for your jealousy. Things are happening for me. Big things. That Food Network call wasn't a joke. It's not jealousy, it's the truth. You stole it." I was almost screaming now, tears of rage and helplessness streaming down my face. "Stole it," she scoffed. "You let that recipe sit in a dusty old book in your closet. You did nothing with it. I gave it life. If anything, you should be thanking me. Nana would be proud of me for being smart, for making something of our name. She wouldn't be proud of you for hiding in the shadows, clinging to the past." The line went dead. I stood there in the silence of my apartment, the sound of her words echoing in my ears. Hiding in the shadows. Maybe she was right about that part. I had always let her shine brighter, convinced myself her light didn't diminish my own. But I was wrong. Her light wasn't her own. It was fueled by everything she took from me. And as I stood there, shattered and humiliated, a tiny, hard ember of anger began to glow in the pit of my stomach. She thought I would just cry in my apartment and let her get away with it. She thought I would continue to be the quiet, agreeable sister she had always known. She had no idea how wrong she was. The war had been declared at that dinner table, but it was here, alone in my apartment with the dial tone buzzing in my ear, that I finally decided to arm myself for battle. My first move was forensic. I spent the next week combing through every digital crumb Bella had left. I downloaded her video, screen captured every article, saved every blog post where she claimed ownership of the Torta di Amore. I was building a dossier of her lies, a meticulous catalog of her deceit. It was painful work, forcing myself to read her words, to see her face smiling back from the screen, but with every piece of evidence I collected, the grief that had paralyzed me began to harden into resolve. I wasn't just sad anymore, I was methodical. My apartment, usually filled with the comforting smells of baking, now smelled of stale coffee and the low hum of my laptop working overtime. I mapped out her entire campaign. I saw how she had carefully seeded the story, starting with small posts, testing the narrative before launching the big video. This wasn't a spontaneous act of plagiarism. It was a calculated, strategic theft of my identity. Seeing it all laid out, the cold, corporate precision of it, killed any lingering sisterly affection I had left. This wasn't family. This was a hostile takeover. The real turning point, the moment that transformed my quest from a vague notion of justice into a concrete plan, happened on a rainy Saturday afternoon. To escape the digital ghost of my sister, I'd decided to tackle a task I'd been putting off for months: sorting through the last of Nana's boxes that were stored in my parents' garage. My parents were out, so I had the house to myself. The garage was cold and damp, smelling of dust and old memories. Tucked away in a corner was a large wooden trunk, filled with Nana's personal effects, photo albums, linens, and a small, unassuming cardboard box tied with faded red ribbon. I almost overlooked it. Inside, nestled among yellowed doilies, was a stack of letters bundled by year. They were written in Italian, in Nana's familiar looping script. They were letters she had written to her sister, my great-aunt Sophia, who still lived in their home village in Sicily. My Italian was rusty but good enough. I sat on the cold concrete floor, my legs crossed, and began to read. The letters were a beautiful, mundane record of her life in America. Descriptions of the fog rolling over San Francisco, complaints about the price of good olive oil, and endless, loving details about her 2 granddaughters. And then I found it. A letter dated from the summer I turned 16. My breath caught in my chest. "Cara Sofia," it began. "This week, I finally shared the secret of the torta di amore with my little Elena. Isabella has the flash, the charm, but Elena, she has the heart of a baker. She has my hands. I showed her how to candy the Diamante citrons, how the bitter zest must be balanced with the syrup just so. She understood immediately. It is a quiet magic, and she is the one who will carry it. I worry for her sometimes. She lets her sister's light outshine her own, but I know that one day she will find her strength. This recipe is hers now. It is her inheritance." I read the words again and again, tears blurring the ink. It is her inheritance. Nana had seen it all: Bella's flash, my quietness, the imbalance in our relationship. And she had chosen me. She had put it in writing. This letter wasn't just a memory, it was a testament. It was proof. It was a weapon. Holding that thin, fragile piece of paper in my hands, I felt a surge of power, so intense it made me dizzy. The sadness that had clung to me like a shroud finally burned away, leaving behind a core of pure, unadulterated steel. Bella had built her empire on a lie, but I was holding the truth. And I was going to use it to tear her kingdom down, brick by brick. My plan needed to be as precise and calculated as her own campaign of deceit. A screaming match on social media would just make me look like a crazy, jealous sister. A narrative Bella would exploit with glee. No, this had to be silent, professional, and lethal. The next Monday morning, I walked into the downtown San Francisco offices of a boutique law firm that specialized in intellectual property. I sat across from a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Ms. Chun. I laid out everything on her polished mahogany desk. The printouts of Bella's articles, a USB drive with her videos, the online store link, and finally, a certified translation of Nana Lucia's letter. Ms. Chun listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she picked up the translated letter. "A recipe itself is difficult to protect legally," she explained, her voice calm and measured. "It's considered a list of instructions. But what you have here, this is different. You have provenance. You have a story. And your sister hasn't just stolen a recipe. She's created a brand, a commercial enterprise based on a fraudulent narrative." She tapped the letter. "This is the cornerstone. The name Torta di Amore combined with the origin story, that can be protected." For the next 2 weeks, we worked. Ms. Chen's team filed an application to trademark the name, Nana Lucia's Torta di Amore, and a logo I designed based on Nana's signature. We compiled every piece of evidence into a formal package. I contacted my great-aunt Sophia in Sicily, who was furious on my behalf and gladly provided a notarized affidavit confirming Nana's letters and the story of the recipe being passed down to me. The pieces were moving into place. While the legal gears turned, I started my own quiet counteroffensive. I created an Instagram account at The Inheritance Recipe. It was the antithesis of Bella's flashy, overproduced feed. I posted simple, beautiful photos of my baking. I shared pictures of Nana's handwritten recipe book, of old, faded family photos of me as a little girl in the kitchen, my face dusted with flour, beaming up at my grandmother. And I started to tell the story. The real story. I wrote about Nana's journey from Sicily, about the meaning behind her recipes, about the way she taught me to respect the ingredients. I never once mentioned Bella. I never attacked her. I just calmly, consistently, and authentically told the truth. I posted the recipe for another of Nana's simple cookies, and people started making it. My follower count was tiny compared to Bella's, a few hundred against her hundreds of thousands, but my engagement was real. People responded to the authenticity. I was building my own small foundation of truth. Meanwhile, Bella's world was exploding. As she'd hinted, the Food Network feature had evolved into something much bigger. She made a splashy announcement on her Instagram. She had signed a development deal with a major production company to host her own baking show, tentatively titled Bella's Sweet Life. It was the ultimate prize. She was going to be a star. The announcement was accompanied by a slick promo video and an exclusive interview in a major magazine. She was on top of the world, completely untouchable. And that's when I knew it was time to strike. We didn't go after Bella. Ms. Chen advised against it. A direct attack gives her a platform to play the victim, she said. We go after her business partners. They have everything to lose. A week after Bella's big announcement, Ms. Chen sent a meticulously crafted cease and desist letter. It wasn't sent to my sister, but to the head of legal affairs at the Food Network and the CEO of the production company. The letter didn't make wild accusations. In calm legal language, it stated that our client, Elena Rossi, was the trademark holder of Nana Lucia's Torta di Amore, and that the central narrative and core intellectual property of their new show's host, Isabella Rossi, appeared to be based on fraudulent claims. It included copies of the trademark filing, the affidavit from my great-aunt Sophia, and a copy of Nana's letter. It concluded by saying we sought to open a dialogue to clarify the chain of title for the show's primary creative assets before production commences, in order to avoid potential future litigation and public relations complications. It was the legal equivalent of a perfectly placed bomb. I pictured the letter landing on some high-paid lawyer's desk in New York or Los Angeles. I didn't have to wait long to see the fallout. For 2 days there was silence. Then on the third day I got an email. It was from a senior vice president at the production company. He wanted to schedule a conference call. With me, my lawyer Isabella, and their legal team. The trap had been sprung. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday in a sterile, glass-walled conference room at a law firm in San Francisco's financial district. It felt a world away from Nana's warm, flour-dusted kitchen. I wore a simple black dress, feeling like an imposter among the sea of expensive suits. Ms. Chen sat beside me, calm and composed. Then Bella swept in, flanked by her own lawyer, a slick-looking man in a suit that probably cost more than my rent. Bella was dressed for a television appearance, in a vibrant pink dress and flawless makeup. She shot me a look of pure venom, a silent promise of annihilation. She still thought she was in control. The room was tense. The executives from the production company and the network were on a large screen via video conference, their faces grim. Bella's lawyer started, his voice oozing condescension. He painted me as a disgruntled, jealous sibling, launching a frivolous, last-ditch effort to cash in on her sister's hard-earned success. Ms. Isabella Rossi is a beloved public figure, he droned on. These claims are baseless and frankly defamatory. When he finished, one of the network executives on the screen, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper tone, spoke. We've reviewed the documents your counsel sent, Ms. Rossi, she said, looking at me. But we're hearing a very different story from your sister. So let's cut to it. What is your side? This was my moment. My heart was pounding, but I took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera on the conference table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. I told them about Nana Lucia, about growing up in her kitchen, about the secret of the candied citron. I told them how the recipe was an inheritance, a legacy whispered from grandmother to granddaughter. And then Ms. Chun began to present the evidence. She placed a high-resolution, certified copy of Nana's letter on the table, sliding it across so Bella and her lawyer could see. She submitted the sworn affidavit from our great-aunt in Sicily. She presented the official filing receipt for the trademark, Nana Lucia's Torta di Amore. I watched Bella's face. As each piece of evidence was laid out, the color drained from her cheeks. The confident, smug mask began to crack. Her lawyer started to shuffle his papers, his blustering confidence evaporating. He had come prepared to fight a family squabble, not a meticulously documented intellectual property claim. "This is ridiculous." Bella finally burst out, her voice high and strained. "She's twisting things. My grandmother loved us both. Of course I learned things in her kitchen." The sharp-eyed executive on the screen cut her off. "Ms. Rossi," she said, her voice like ice. "The issue here is not family sentiment. The issue is that you have built a commercial brand, one which we have invested in, on a story. Your sister has presented compelling evidence that the story, the very foundation of that brand, is not yours to tell. Our legal department considers this a significant liability." Bella's lawyer tried to interrupt, but she waved him off. "Let me be blunt. We cannot move forward with a host whose entire public persona could be revealed as fraudulent. The PR fallout would be catastrophic." Bella stared at her, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The untouchable influencer, the culinary star, was being dismantled in a corporate boardroom by a woman who didn't care about her million followers, only about the bottom line. She turned to me, her eyes wild with a desperation I had never seen before. "Elena, please," she whispered across the table. "Don't do this. We're sisters." I looked at her, at the woman who had humiliated me, who had stolen from our dead grandmother, who had gaslighted and belittled me my entire life. I thought of Nana's words in the letter. She lets her sister's light outshine her own, but I know that one day she will find her strength. I had found it. "You're right, Bella," I said, my voice steady and clear. "We are sisters, and you used that to steal from me. This isn't about revenge. It's about the truth." A heavy silence fell over the room. The executive on the screen exchanged a look with her colleagues. Then she looked back at me, a new, calculating expression on her face. "Ms. Chun," she said, completely ignoring Bella now, "perhaps you and your client would be open to a new conversation. The story you've told us today, the real story, is actually far more compelling. The revenge wasn't just in watching Bella's empire crumble. It was in the sickening, beautiful irony of what happened next. The network didn't just drop Bella, they ghosted her. Her calls went unanswered. The production deal was terminated, citing a morals clause in her contract. Her talent agency dropped her. The brands she had sponsorship deals with, spooked by the whispers of fraud that began to leak out, started pulling their support. Her carefully constructed world fell apart with shocking speed. And me? I was offered the deal. They wanted the real story. They wanted the inheritance, the history, the quiet magic Nana had written about. They wanted me. We spent the next 2 months in development. They loved the name I had chosen for my Instagram, and it became the title of the show, The Inheritance Recipe. The concept was simple and authentic. Each week, I would bake a recipe from Nana's book and tell the story behind it. It was everything Bella's show was meant to be, but it was real. Filming began that fall in a beautiful rustic studio in Marin County, designed to look like a modernized version of Nana's kitchen. Stepping onto that set for the first time felt like coming home. The crew was kind, the producers were respectful, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen. I wasn't Elena, Bella's quiet little sister. I was Elena Rossi, the host of my own show, the keeper of my family's legacy. The show premiered to quiet but respectable ratings, which grew steadily each week. Critics praised its authenticity, its heart. They called it a refreshing antidote to the slick, manufactured world of food influencers. I never mentioned Bella on the show. I never had to. My victory was in the telling of the truth, in honoring my grandmother's memory in the way it was meant to be honored. My parents were caught in an impossible position, but eventually, seeing my success and Bella's self-inflicted downfall, they began to understand. Our relationship is strained, but we're slowly, carefully trying to rebuild. 6 months after the premiere, I was on set, filming the season finale. The episode was about the torta di amore. As I carefully folded the almond flour into the batter, I recounted the story of Nana teaching me her secret, just as it had happened. During a break, I checked my phone. There was a text from my mother. It was a picture, sent without comment. It showed the front of a drab, low-rise apartment building in a nondescript suburb far from the city, the kind of place you move to when you can no longer afford your life. It was Bella's new home. I stared at the photo, at the cracked pavement and the faded paint, a stark contrast to the glossy, sun-drenched world she had once curated for herself online. I felt a brief, hollow pang, not of pity, but of the vast, empty space where a sister used to be. The stage manager called my name, signaling that the break was over. I put my phone down, the screen going dark. I walked back to my mark under the warm, bright studio lights, ready to place my perfect, golden brown cake on its pedestal. I never replied to the text. After all, some recipes are best served cold. The end.